Morning. Well, welcome to the last front end session. Yeah, so we are heading towards the end of our sessions, and we started to take a look at the Arbitrum SDK, and we have seen a basic overview, and we learned one or two. That was yesterday. So today, it's quite technical. So I would actually want us to pay close attention because it's a class where if you don't pay attention, there's a chance that you might get lost or confused at some certain point. So we'll just dive into it since it's going to be a long class. It might be long, may not be long, depending on how fast we can tackle it. All right, so today we'll be looking at bridging. So what is bridging? Do any of us have an idea what bridging is? Oh, okay. So it might not necessarily be layer 1 to layer 2. Yeah, it could be vice versa. It could even be from one within the same layer from one blockchain to another. So it's kind of interactions between blockchain, right? So different blockchains, they are interacting with each other. Now that interaction could involve moving assets from one blockchain to the other, and then moving assets could be moving your tokens, moving your Ether, moving your even to NFTs, your ELC 721, right? So all of that, they're all classified under assets, and all these assets can be viewed under interactions between different blockchains. So so it's just like the name, it's just more like you're building a bridge between two countries, right? Where people can move and navigate between those countries. Now that bridge is what enables them to migrate from one country to the other, or even vice versa. So without that bridge, people can move. So that's what bridging means in essence. And this time around, so Arbitrum SDK actually supports bridging, and that's moving assets from layer 1 to Arbitrum, from Ethereum to Arbitrum. So it could go both ways. It could be from Ethereum to Arbitrum or Arbitrum to Ethereum. Yeah. So today we'll be understanding gateways, what are gateways, and then we'll understand how to bridge tokens between Ethereum and Arbitrum using a custom gateway. So firstly, token bridging is a fundamental aspect of any layer 2 protocol. Because remember, most layer 2 protocols involves moving those assets to, like, moving them off chain, like moving from Ethereum to the layer 2, and then on that layer 2 the transactions can now be faster, optimized, and once it's done, it's moved back to layer 1. So ideally you should understand that if you're building a layer 2 protocol or any layer 2 protocol, they have to find a way to bridge those tokens so that they can move from the layer 1 to that particular layer 2 protocol. So Arbitrum uses its ability to pass messages between layer 1 and 2 to allow projects to trustlessly move assets from Ethereum to an Arbitrum chain and back. Now, yesterday we saw cross-chain messaging. And we got to understand that Arbitrum makes use of messages between layer 1 and layer 2. And those messages, so we actually understood retriable tickets where we said the messages are separable. Layer 1 has its own messages and layer 2 has its own messages. So Arbitrum makes use of these messages to move assets from Ethereum to the Arbitrum chain and back. So you need to understand messaging. Tomorrow's class is all about messaging, Arbitrum messaging from L1 to L2 and L2 to L1. But we need to have that fundamental understanding that Arbitrum makes use of. It uses its ability to pass messages so it could move assets. So any asset and asset type in principle can be bridged, including Ether, ERC tokens, ERC 721 tokens, among others. We understand ERC 721 tokens. Just give me 2 examples. One, precious. Huh? That was another ERC since that you mint. So yeah, and it is lands, people sell lands, yeah, stuff like that. So any asset that can be digitally owned, right? So even to NFTs include pictures, videos, the rest. So they can all be digitally owned. So they all fall under ERC 721. There is one that is inclusive of both ERC 20 and ERC 721. I don't know if I've come across it, ERC 1155. So all of that is not in the scope of this class. Yeah, so that this is that for both of them. So now we have gateway. What this gateway does is it can act as the middleman between L1 and L2. So there are 3 options to consider when deciding how to bridge your token. There's the standard gateway. So if you want to bridge your standard ERC20 that doesn't have any modification, any new requirements, you can make use of standard gateway. Now there's generic custom gateway. This includes your standard ERC20 and probably if it now has a few other requirements that this particular gateway covers, can make use of that. Then we have the full-blown custom gateway. Now, this custom gateway, what it does is in scenarios where your token doesn't follow probably the standard protocol. When I say standard, when you try to create your ERC20 token, remember we're making it on the standard interface where you just import from OpenZeppelin and then you mint directly. So that's like standard. But there are scenarios where you have a extra requirements, you added extra functionalities, and you want to bridge that from your L1 to your L2. So you can make use of your custom gateway. All right. So we'll still take a look at that. But to understand custom gateway, how it works is this. It involves depositing a token. Depositing a token entails escrowing some amount of that token in an L1 bridge contract. I don't know if you are familiar with escrow in the general sense. So escrow involves I don't want to say a platform. It's more like I want to buy a product from this business, right? I want to buy a product from this, let's say business A. Yeah. So I want to buy a product from business A, but I don't trust business A because why? Maybe I've gone online, I can't say review for that particular business, and I can't even say I just don't trust. So now, what do people do in scenarios like this? the people make use of escrow, meaning you introduce a middleman, and then how the middleman works is you release your funds, the funds for that particular product, to the middleman, while once the middleman confirms that the funds is with him, the owner of the product, the seller, will now release the product to you. So once you get the product, you can now let the middleman know that you have gotten the product, you can release the money. And then at that particular point, the middleman releases the money to the seller. So that way we understand that the middleman is trusted by both sources, both the seller and the buyer. So this is what this gateway does. So what happens is it gets to expose the amount of token. Probably if you are trying to deposit from L1 to L2, it gets to expose it, escrow, like it tends to like hold the token, and then I'm minting the same amount at the paired token contract on L2. So on L2, the paired contract behaves much like a normal ELC token contract. So what it does is once you deposit, it kind of mints the same amount that you have tried to deposit on the L1. So to try to mint the same amount on the L2. So that was how depositing works. Withdrawing, if you want to withdraw, what happens is it burns some of the amount of the token in the L2 contract, which can later be claimed from the L1 bridge contract. So we'll see how this works. So now the architecture in customizing your token bridge, right, is you need 3 types of contracts. One is the asset contract. So your ERC20 contract, you need the asset contracts. Now these are the token contracts themselves. And you need 2 of it. One will be on the L1 and the counterpart will be on Arbitrum, that is your L2. So this is the first contract that you need. You need 2 token contracts, one for L1 and the other for L2. And then let me check it out. You now need your gateways. So this gateway too, you need a pair of it, one for L1 and the other for L2. The reason why you need the pair of it is because if you want to withdraw from your L2 to your L1, you need that gateway. So pair of contracts that implement a particular type of cross-chain asset bridging. And then we have the routers. Now, routers is that we need 2 of it also. So every contract you are going to write, you need 2 of them. One is going to be on the L1 and one is going to be for the L2. So this router, what they do is they route each asset to its designated gateway. So it's just more like probably road network. So let's just say in the normal sense of you have a bridge that leads to probably you are in Nigeria, you want to navigate to Ghana. Now, there are different bridges probably, but there's a particular bridge for you to go to Ghana. So this router now, you have maps and road that will lead to that particular bridge. So this router acts as probably that map or even like the route. They'll be like, okay, this route is going to assign each asset to the designated gateway. They'll be like, okay, this road is going to lead you to Ghana, to the bridge that will lead you to Ghana. So it's just more like a route that assigns each asset to its designated gateway as required. So how does it work? It works in this manner. So all Ethereum to Arbitrum token transfers are initiated via the router contract. Remember we said you need the router contract in the architecture. So they are initiated via the router contract first on L1. So you can just name that the L1 gateway router contract. Now, this router contract, what it does is it forwards the token's deposit call to the appropriate gateway contract on L1. So if you want to deposit 100 token, right? So what this router do is to forward that call to the gateway on the L1. Now, this gateway router, what it does is responsible for mapping L1 token addresses to L1 gateway contracts. I've explained this. So what is that's like the Oracle, just how Oracle works, and ensuring that each token corresponds to only one gateway. Now, this gateway then communicates to its counterpart's gateway contract on L2, right? So it's that particular gateway that would now make contact to the L2, and then from there it works. So thank you for listening. We'll see how this works in essence. So we did our setup yesterday. The setup we did for that yesterday, we can continue with that particular setup. I've not pushed, I'll push it after the class. Huh? Oh, okay. So I'll do that then. Okay. No what happened. Let me. So please just give me 2 minutes. Let me do that. So let's get here by 10:23. So let's do that. Okay, so we can all access the code on GitHub. Let's push that. So using the setup of yesterday, I'll just go ahead to duplicate the configuration that we did yesterday, and I'm going to use that for today's class. So I'll just name this. To those of us online, can you hear me and see my screen? Is it clear enough? Yes. Okay, so in continuation of in continuation, the first step we did yesterday was we got to set up our L2 network where we said, okay, fetch the L2 network, right? So we're going to be using that to fetch. So I'll assign a new variable. Call this L2 network is what use it to fetch get L2 network, where we pass in the L2 provider. Now we did this. So and then afterwards yesterday we instantiated our ETH bridger, right? Which we said was used to bridge Ether. If you want to send Ether. And I also mentioned that if you want to bridge tokens, what to use is what to use the ERC20 bridger, because we mentioned there are two common bridgers, which was ERC20 and ETH bridgers. So in this class, we are going to bridge tokens. We're not trying to bridge Ether itself. It's tokens we want to bridge. So we're going to make use of the ERC20 bridger. So this is going to be ERC20 bridger. Now, as so this will take in the L2 network as the argument, as the parameter. Now we have this. There's also one more bridger you're going to need, which is the admin token bridger, right? So what this is going to do is, since you are the admin of the ERC20, I don't going to deploy the ERC20. There are certain privileges your address is going to have, and then there are certain configurations you can now do as the admin of that particular token. So we'll see where this comes in place, but for now, let's initialize our admin token bridgers. So this is also going to be, so all of this I exported from Arbitrum SDK. So let's take note of that. We don't need. So this is also taking the L2 network, the L2. Okay. All right. So we have introduced new two variables, which is ERC20 bridger and also the admin ERC20 bridger. Now, what next do we need to do? We need our router. Remember, we said we need the router to point each asset to its designated gateway. And we would also need our gateway. But first off, you need the router so it could point to the right gateway. How do you initialize or get your router? There's methods. The Arbitrum SDK returns the gateway router for you. So all you just have to do is all you just need to do is you need to initialize the router so you actually know what it's doing. So this is going to be our L2 network. So once you, from your L2 network, once you try to access to Cambridge, you see that you have most of what you need in order to proceed with bridging. So you have your custom gateway, you have your ERC20 gateway, you have your L1 gateway router, and you have so many other things. So for L1 router, with all we need is the L1 gateway router. Then we have this. So the next thing is you need the L2 router. So remember we said you need two routers, one for L1 and the second for L2. So you can just duplicate this and rename it and change it to L2. L2 gateway router. All right, good. So we have initialized this. What is the next step? Let me add comments so we don't get lost. So we actually know what's happening. That's what we are doing here. So in here, the next thing is we now have to deploy our token and gateways. Our contracts, we need to deploy them. So how do you do that? So let me just console the log to custom gateways tokens deployment. So we actually know what step we are as we run our code. If you want to deploy your custom gateway to L1, the contract is already inbuilt for you from Arbitrum SDK. So all you just need to do is you just use ETAX to deploy the contracts. You have without dots. What's happening here is you have to deploy. Remember, I said you have to deploy your custom gateways, their contracts, and you have to deploy your tokens, your asset contracts. Because in the architecture that we mentioned, there are three contracts that need deployment. One, your assets, second, your gateways, and also your routers. So firstly, you need to deploy so we're going ahead to deploy our custom gateway. And we're deploying this on the L1. Now, how are we getting our contract? Remember, I said the contract is already given to you from Arbitrum SDK. So you just need to pass in your L1 custom gateway name and to fetch the contract for you and deploy that to using your wallet, your L1 wallet that you're passing to this. So now we have this. We can easily console the log what deploying L1 contracts, custom gateway. Right. So we have so We have initialized our contract factory. The next thing we want to do is we want to deploy it. How do you deploy using it as? How do you deploy using it as? Using it as? Ita.js, how do you deploy? I want to deploy this line 49. How do I deploy this? How do I deploy this? So if I try to access this, you should use the deploy. Use the deploy function. Yeah, that's correct. So use the deploy function to deploy your contracts since you have initialized it. Now for this deploy, um, both you need to pass in parameters to it, and you need to pass in your L1 router to the custom gateway that you're deploying to it. All right. So once you have that, what you can always do is you can just wait for we can wait for it to deploy. So we would wait for this to deploy. So there's the deployed. So this is going to run, it's going to wait till it's deployed. So nothing else is going to happen as far as this is not deployed. Now once it's deployed, it means we would have our contract address. So I can always just get our contract address. So I can say custom or L1 gateway custom L1 gateway custom gateway to L1 gateway is deployed to, at this point I cannot do custom L1 custom L1 custom gateway dot address. So here we are getting we are cutting our address. So we're going to see this inside of our console.log. But I would also want to assign this address to a variable so we can always have access to it. Okay. Any questions so far? So in the absence of question, we'll be moving on. The next step is what? We are going to deploy our custom token to L1. So we'll deploy our custom token to L1. Now, how do we do that? How do you deploy your token using Ethos? Yeah. Does anybody have an answer to that? Okay. Since you don't have to deploy, So what's going to happen is for our L1 custom token, we would also get the contract from Ether, like from Arbitrum. So we'll just deploy the contract using Ethers. Now, there's L1 token that you can deploy, and then you can pass in the L1 wallet to it. So we're trying to deploy this to the L1 on L1. Now we have this. The next step is you need to also deploy this. So how do you deploy it? You do what? How do you deploy this? You just did this. Someone should just answer me. How do we deploy this L1 custom token? So deploy it. Yeah, thank you. So we use so I will assign that to a variable so that we can get the result. Await L1 token, right? Custom token. Dot deploy. Okay, so for our argument, what we are going to pass in here is we are trying to give our custom token, right? We are trying to give the contract the address of both our L1 gateway and also the gateway router. So the custom gateway that we have and the router, we are trying to give it the address. And also we need to pass in the amounts of token we want to meet. Remember, you need to pass that if you are trying to deploy your ERC20 token. So for that, how do we do that? We do L1 custom gateway address that we have deployed, one, and then you pass in the L1 router. And the amount we want to mint. How many should we mint? We can mint 1,000, right? So we can say we want to mint 1,000. So if you want to mint this, there's something wrong with our code. We can just point it out. It still work, but what we want to mint won't be correct. Why? Does anybody have an idea? Yeah, okay, let me even give an hint. The issue is on line 61. So I'm trying to deploy it and I'm trying to give the customer, like the custom token, the address of our custom gateway address and L1 router. And then I'm passing in the amount of token I want the L1 to mint. Now there's something wrong. It's quite simple. It's not the fact that I don't. So I'm passing in 1,000. I want to mint 1,000 token. Remember, if you want to mint, you need to do your pass it as to convert it to Ether. So reason being that this is going to mean whenever we pass 1,000 to it, it's going to mean 1,000 token. Why? Because it's going to do the underlying calculations where you raise it to the power of the token decimal and then mean all of that. So we need to take note of that and be cautious of that also.
If I cannot pass it, will it show error or if
it will meet, but you would see a very small number. You might even see that it might just mean 0.00, like something minute that you cannot even make use of. Do we get? Okay. Yeah, so that's how we deploy this. So the next thing is what? This is supposed to be an interactive class. So I'll be asking us. So it doesn't seem like it's just me that's making the calculation. So what's the next thing? But before you do that, you need to wait for it to deploy. If you don't wait for it to deploy, to just continue. Meanwhile, it has not even deployed. And for our continuation to work, it needs to be deployed first, like for our code to work. So how do we do that? We do await L1 custom token dot deploy. It's going to, so this line 63 is going to like pause our execution till it's deployed. And then once we have that, we can now come to the log that, okay, our token is deployed. We can now do custom token is deployed at, then we'll get our address, L1 custom dot address. Okay, so far we have they are not different. So await and async are promises, right? So promises are asynchronous operations in your code. So if you want to specify that this function is a asynchronous operation, now we know asynchronous is what they are running concurrently. Yeah, they are running at the same time. So if you want to specify that, okay, this function, I want it to be a promise. I want it to run asynchronously. The first thing you need to do is you need to specify the async. So that's why if you see our overall function, there's async here. If it's a function, you do async function like this, right? If you are using arrow function, you do it like this. So this is the first step. Now, at any point where you want to make a asynchronous call, an asynchronous call, you use the await keyword. So if you even notice, if some operations are not asynchronous, VS Code will throw an error. So for example, this console log is not asynchronous, it's a normal synchronous call. If I put await here, you see there's like 3 ... under A. If I over on it, what do I get? Await has no effect on this type of expression. So this await only works on async, like whenever I specify async, that okay, this is a promise. Then there's also, you can do your promise directly, right? But you can always go and learn how to use promise. So this you can do, you can use it to fetch to run asynchronous operations, but that's beyond our scope right now. Okay, so we have deployed our custom token, so L1. Now the next thing is we need to deploy the same custom gateway to L2. So firstly, we would just deploy, let's go ahead to deploy our L2 token. So I'll just be L2, L2, to change this to L2, and I need to be on L2 page, right? Yeah, so I missed out on something. For if you're trying to bridge tokens, you need to also instantiate a new wallet for L2, right? So it's not just L1 that's going to have a wallet. L2 is also going to have a wallet. So this is going to be L2 provider. So just instantiate. You can use the same private key. So in here, yeah, L2 wallet. So are we lost? Are we lost? So we don't even need to implement this. So I didn't get it. This is supposed to be L2. So we forgot to deploy our L2 custom gateway. Right. Yeah, we forgot to do that. So let's quickly I'll just duplicate this, and it's basically the same code you're going to use that you use for your L1 custom gateway. So that's why I'm duplicating this. So we have L2 custom gateway. This is going to be L2 wallet. L2, L2, L2 router, L2 custom gateway. Yeah, so I believe we are good to go here. So in our token, we will deploy this to our L2 custom gateway address and our L1 custom token address. So wait for it to deploy. Then once that's deployed, then
Which one is this?
yeah. So from line 80 down to line 88. Yeah, so this is L2, sorry. Let me add L2 custom token. So let me change this to do we have any question? So I know at the beginning of the class I said this class is quite technical. All right. So a quick recap.
It always ensures that.
So okay. So a quick recap of what we have done so far is this: we are fetching our L2 network, right? And we are trying to bridge tokens, not ETH. So that's why you see we are using ERC20 bridger. Now we also have our admin token bridger. We have not made use of this. We will still come back to it. So we can just ignore that for now. But apart from that, now we now have our router. And when we're going through the slide, we talked about the gateway router, which we said it assigns a route for each asset to its gateway, right? So this is us initializing a router for L1 and also for L2 based on the different networks. So this is supposed to be L1 network. So yeah, this is correct. L2 network. Yeah, this is correct. So this is based on L1 gateway router and L2 gateway router. And all of this can be gotten from whenever you fetch your L2 network, it can be gotten from the token bridge object, right? Now, moving on from that, we are now trying to deploy our custom gateway contracts. So this is where we are trying to deploy our contracts. And the name of our L1 contract is L1 Custom Gateway. and then we're passing in the wallet that's going to deploy from this. And then from there, we now deploy our custom gateway, which we are now passing in our L1 router. So so it's going to deploy based on this router. And then once that's done, you wait for it to be deployed. That's why you see we are doing L1 custom gateway dot deployed. And once that's deployed, you can now get the address of the contract, the custom gateway address. So you're going to repeat the same process for L2. Now we're deploying two contracts. So we are repeating the same process for L2. So that's why you see we have all of this here. So it's basically the same flow of the L1 deployment. But this time around, we use L2 variables instead of L1 variables. Once you are done with that, the next step is you can now deploy your custom tokens, your asset contract. And we said you have to deploy both on L1 and L2. So once you have that, you deploy it based on the L1 wallet. But this time around, we are passing in, instead of deploy, we're passing in the L1 custom gateway address and the L1 router. So we want to get our token contract from both of these. It will compute that and then give us our smart contract address. And then we are passing in the amount of token we want to mint. Once that is deployed, you get your custom token, and then you do the same thing for L2. Any question? Any question? No other questions. We'll move on. So please, let's not lose focus. Is it too hard? Yeah? It's too hard. Okay. How else do we break it? Because it gets more complicated for me. Oh, okay, yeah. So you guys can always refer back to the video. And in cases where you have questions, you can always come back and ask me. There's different platforms for us to interact. You can do that. So the next step is we are going to set our token bridge information to our L1 custom gateway. So we are just going to feed our custom gateway the bridge information. So this is setting token bridge information on L1 custom gateway. How do we do this? So what you just do is you are going to just specify the custom token that you have deployed to two of them, and then the L2 custom gateway. So remember we said the gateway is going to, the L1 gateway is the one that's going to reach out to your L2. And it's going to act as the escrow between your L1 and the L2. So we said that. So we are just going to, so what you're just doing, you're just setting basic information that, okay, this is the buyer, this is the seller, and this is the contract you can call whenever you are ready. So we'll just do set token bridge. We'll name the set token bridge info, right, on L1. So this is quite simple. So you just get your L1 custom gateway, and then you set token So this is straightforward. Firstly, you will pass in what the L1 cost in address, and then you pass in the L2 custom token address, and then you pass in the L2 custom gateway address. So with this, you are setting your information, your token being information to your custom gateway, so it can know who is at the receiving end, who is at the giving end, and what to connect to. Do we have any question on that? Okay, so moving on, once you have done this, I think what we should do is let's focus on just L1 depositing. So once we can crush out depositing, we can now move on to withdrawal. So all these L2 custom, so we'll just focus more on depositing first. And then once we are done with that, we can now move on to withdrawal. So it doesn't get choked up in our head. So basically what is required at this particular point is we can wait for this to be done. Right, so you just do your await set token vision dot wait. Once you do this, you can easily get your transaction hash, and then you can console log our transaction hash. So you cannot say our token bridge information. L1 custom gateway. We have successfully set our bridge information on the L1 custom gateway. Once you are done with that, the next thing is the different steps. So what's required at this particular point is you can now register your custom token on L2. So what is happening is you are trying to register your custom token from L1. You want to register it on the L2. All right. Okay, so if you want to see the details of the transaction on your Explorer, so I'm just console the login that so that we can easily get that and view that in our Explorer. Right. So it should just show you details of this information that you just set. Then you can view that. So it's just a way to show that okay, successful. It's just a simple way to do that. All right. So okay, so let's move on to the next thing. So if you want to register your custom token on L2, that's where that admin L2 20 bit block comes in. You are the admin of the custom token, I don't deploy it. So you have the functionality and access to register that token on L2. So I'll just do register custom gateway. So let me just do. So if you want to register your custom token on L2, you use the admin token bridger, and then firstly you do L1 custom. So you pass in the L1 custom token address. You would also pass in the L2 custom token address, and then you would pass in the L1 wallet and the L2 provider. So it's just like the way we transferred it yesterday, where you pass in the address, pass in the L1 wallet and the L2 provider. Right. So L1 wallet, because the call is going to happen from the L1. You are trying to register from L1. So whatever call you need is going to be from your L1 wallet. And then they also provide that to know the network of the layer 2, and then for you to interact with it. So you would pass in your deployed token addresses. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So once you have this, you can always wait. So we can do our wait. So whenever you see deployed wait, what's happening is we're waiting for our synchronous calls to be done. Do we get? If you don't wait for it to be done, transaction, your code will keep getting executed while it's not even done deployed. So now, once we do this, there are two steps involved. It's going to be confirmed on L1, and then a message is going to be sent to L2. That message now, using the retriable ticket, it can take 10 to 15 minutes for the transactions to be completed. So this is where we now wait for it to be done. So remember, we're already doing our wait. So we'll just do console. So let's just add the extra console.log. And in here, we can also waiting for L2 be triable retriable. So this takes 10 to 15 minutes. At this particular point, our code has to wait for 10 to 15 minutes for it to be, for you see a response and for your code execution to continue. So can I say that? All right. So if you are building your decentralized application, I think what you can also do at this particular point is you tell your users to check back in 15 minutes. You can just give an estimation and then tell your user to check at that particular point. Okay, so at this point, we are waiting for the L2 retriable. So once that is completed, right, you can now proceed. So let me go to this. I think that's supposed to go like this. So once this is completed, you can now go ahead to deposit. Can now deposit. Right. So how do you deposit? So we did our yesterday we used ELT middays bidder to deposit. So today we use ELT20 bidder to deposit. Do your deposit, right? And then you pass in the necessary details. What's the amount? So for amount, you can just do pass ether, and then we can transfer 100 or 100 token. The next thing is to pass in the ELT20 L1 address. So that we use our L1 custom token address, and then you pass in your L1 signer, which is your L1 wallet, and then you pass in your L2 provider, and then we wait for the transaction to be done. So transaction will wait. If you want to wait for L2, how do you wait for L2? Did this yesterday. Huh? I didn't get it. Thank you. So you use use wait for L2. It's quite straightforward. And you pass in your L2 provider. Yeah. So with this, our code is supposed to, we can now run our code. So we did all of this yesterday. I'm just trying to wait for the L2 to be confirmed. And then once that's completed, we do console the log. Deposit, console the log, but deposit failed. Now, let me go through what we have done so far. And even if you don't understand the syntax, I actually want us to understand the flow of things. So once you understand the flow, to get the syntax isn't going to be an issue. Now, to go over everything again, we are trying to bridge assets from our token from Ethereum to Arbitrum. Now, to bridge that, we need three contracts. One is what? The asset contract. So that means you're going to deploy your token, your custom token, your ERC20 token that I've been deploying since the beginning of this contract. You're going to deploy that. Now, you're going to need a second contract, which is the gateway. And from our explanation, we said the gateway acts as like the middleman, the escrow, right? The escrow handler. And then lastly, you now need the router. The router assigns each asset, that is going to assign your token to each gateway. So you need to understand those three things, especially the gateway and the router. So to initialize our application, all right, the first thing we need to do is what? We need to get our router, our gateway router, the one that's going to route our token to our gateway. So that's why you noticed we instantiated our router, and then we now deployed our custom gateway. But in deploying this, we now passed in our router to the custom gateway. So it's going to get our address from our L1 router, and then wait for it to be deployed. Once that is deployed, you do the same thing for L2. But you only do the same thing for L2 if you want to withdraw from L2 to L1. That is, you want to withdraw from layer 1 from layer 2 back to layer 1. So we can, so this is what, I think it takes the same time as deposit. Yeah. So once that is done, right, let me even comment out this so it don't get. So once you deploy your L1 custom gateway, which is going to be like your escrow, now the next thing is you now deploy your L2 contract. So remember, we said how it works is you're going to deploy both on L1 and L2. And then, so once you do that, it's just like deploying the same amount. So once you deploy, when you're deploying, you pass in the L1 custom address, right? So you pass that to particular code, and then you wait for it to be deployed. Once you have now gotten your contract, your custom gateway, and your two tokens, the next step is you now set the token bridge information to that custom gateway. So it's just like this. You have your escrow, person you want to buy from. Now, let's say the middleman doesn't know who is the buyer, is the seller. You need to introduce yourself. That, okay, I am the buyer. The seller is this, and this is who you release the money to once you have gotten the money. So it's just like the same flow. You're just giving the custom gateway information that, okay, this is the first token address, the L1 token address, and then this is the second token address, and then this is the the L2 custom gateway address. So once you have that, right, you are done with setting up the custom gateway. So the next step is you are now going to register your custom token on L2. So you are trying to register your L1 custom token I have deployed on L2. So I can give you necessary permissions, even though it will not allow you to do so. And then once you are done, you deposit. You can now go ahead to deposit. If you are using standard gateway, it's quite straightforward. You don't need necessarily all this code. But the whole idea is if you understand custom gateway, standard and generic custom gateway won't be an issue. Because you can understand standard gateway and then you come to custom gateway and you are lost. So that's why we are trying to ensure that you understand this custom gateway. And once you understand that, you know you are settled. Any other question? Any question? Okay.
Anyone person you have set it all right.
Huh?
Yeah. Anyone person we have set it in the beginning.
When you deploy your L1 custom address, so this is at this we deployed, you assign this at this particular point. So you get, so it is our custom address that are deployed. All right. So we missed out on something, and that's we need to approve the token. If you don't approve the token, it won't allow you. So we are going to approve. So we need to approve the L1 gateway, right? So you just do approving the L1 custom gateway. Transfer the token has been deposited. Remember, it's our gateway that's holding the token, that's going to hold the token. So we'll just do approve transaction, which is equal to await. So you get this from your ERC token reader. So we are trying to approve our token to ensure that L1 custom gateway has the approval to transfer the tokens being deposited. And once you do this, you wait for the transaction as usual. So you do wait. And then once you have your wait, you know you can now go ahead to deposit. So if you want to get the transaction hash, you just do your approve. Correct. And then you can now do your console or log. You successfully wait. Okay, it seems like we are good to go. Do you think we are good to go? Is those of us online? Are we lost? Are we confused? All right. So I'll just go ahead to. Don't need this. I'll go ahead to run our code. So there's one more thing our code is missing, which is inbox, right? So inbox is just more like deposit. So you know how you have your normal inbox in sending messages. So using that same flow and explanation, you can easily just take note of that. So how do we get our inbox? You assign a new variable, and then you can get that from your L2 network also. You just need this. And then you pass that to your deploy. Yeah, we're good to go. So let's go ahead to run our code to see if this works. Now let's notice it's going to take time. So we might just run a new script. So this is going to be for right. So it's failing. Why is it failing? Certified for contract L1 custom return. Oh yeah, that's because we didn't add our contracts. We need to get the contracts. How do we get the contract? Right. So just maybe let me get the contracts. Let's see. So I'm just copy all of this. So also need to install. So, Parallels. Oh, I'm taking. Okay. Mm. Okay, so let's just continue and we'll round it off from here. So go. So this is currently failing. Okay, so that's because I'm out of gas. So I need to check my wallet and ensure that I have enough ether. So let me use this wallet. Into this. Again. Still getting the same issue. This is quite interesting. So let me check. So seems like from our configuration, gas limit is failing. Right. Okay. Let's check this out. Let's see what's wrong. Please who has separately other posets to send to me? Let me use that. Just to have fun. Let me send this. Okay. So let's wait for this to be done. Let's try this again. Mm.